The survey ship Constellation drifted silently through the outer reaches of the Sagittarius Arm, its quantum mapping systems humming with quiet precision. Dr. Aria Chen leaned forward, her augmented eyes scanning the holographic displays that surrounded her workstation. After 3 months of monotonous deep space scanning, most of her team had settled into a routine of passive observation and minimal interaction. Anomaly detected, the ship's quantum interface announced, its synthesized voice cutting through the low ambient noise of the bridge. Aria's fingers danced across the holographic controls, isolating and enhancing the unexpected reading. What began as a microscopic quantum flutter rapidly expanded into something far more substantial. The ship's sensors trembled, struggling to process the incoming data stream. "Fold spectrum analysis," she commanded, her voice steady despite the racing of her heart. The holographic display erupted with a cascade of quantum signatures, mathematical probabilities, and spatial temporal coordinates that defied conventional understanding. Something was emerging. No, something was resolving itself from the quantum foam of spacetime. Commander Lucas Rodriguez, the ship's veteran navigator, approached Aria's station, his cybernetic eye, a remnant of his decades of deep space exploration, focused on the rapidly changing display. "That's impossible," he muttered, a trace of his ancestral Spanish accent coloring the words. The quantum anomaly began to stabilize, its chaotic energy patterns resolving into a more definitive shape. Massive energy signatures bloomed across the sensor arrays, overwhelming the constellation's sophisticated scanning systems. Aria adjusted the filters, her augmented neural interface working in perfect synchronization with the ship's computer. And then they saw it. A ship. No, a supercarrier. The U.S. Hyperion materialized as if torn from the fabric of reality itself. Its massive hull gleamed with an impossible perfection, unmarked by the centuries that should have weathered its surface. Navigation lights flickered to life, broadcasting an identification signal that should have been nothing more than a historical footnote. "Quantum stasis," Aria whispered, her mind racing through the implications. "It's been preserved outside of normal spacetime." The Hyperion was a legend among space historians, a technological marvel from humanity's most aggressive expansion period. Reported lost during the Proxima conflict over 2 centuries ago, the supercarrier had become nothing more than a tragic footnote in human space exploration history. Countless expeditions had searched for its remains, finding nothing but scattered debris and unconfirmed rumors. Yet here it was, entire, intact. "Run a full spectral analysis," Commander Rodriguez ordered, his voice tight with controlled excitement. "Check for quantum decay, temporal drift, structural integrity." The ship's systems worked overtime, probing the massive vessel that had seemingly materialized from nowhere. Every scan returned results that challenged everything they understood about quantum mechanics, temporal physics, and space travel. The Hyperion's hull measured precisely 3,742 meters from bow to stern, exactly as historical records had documented. Its quantum signature matched archival data with a precision that defied explanation. No signs of damage. No evidence of the catastrophic battle that had supposedly consumed the ship. Aria's augmented mind began to piece together possibilities. Quantum stasis fields, temporal displacement, preservation technologies far beyond current understanding. Each potential explanation seemed more fantastic than the last. "We need to notify Galactic Confederation headquarters," Lucas said, though they both knew the transmission would cause unprecedented disruption. A sudden pulse of energy emerged from the Hyperion. Not a weapon signature, not a communication signal. Something else entirely. A quantum resonance that made the constellation's systems flutter and dance with unexpected harmonics. "It's alive," Aria breathed, watching as subtle lights began to pulse along the supercarrier's massive hull. "The ship is actively responding to our presence." The quantum ghost had become something more. A technological miracle, a historical impossibility, a potential turning point in galactic history. and their small survey ship was the first to witness its extraordinary return. The transmission from the constellation reached the Galactic Confederation's central communication hub on Nexus Prime precisely 17 minutes after the Hyperion's discovery. Within seconds, the carefully maintained diplomatic equilibrium of the known galaxy began to fracture. In the crystalline chamber of the Orcs collective, Ambassador 09 felt her molecular structure vibrate with an unprecedented combination of fear and excitement. The delicate communication crystals surrounding her central processing core began to resonate at frequencies that threatened their structural integrity. Historical records told of humanity's technological capabilities, but those were believed to be relics of a bygone era. Impossible, she transmitted to her collective consciousness, her quantum-entangled communication network erupting with conflicting data streams. The Orcs had spent decades carefully managing the power dynamics of galactic politics, systematically reducing humanity's influence after the Proxima conflict. Now, a single discovered supercarrier threatened to unravel generations of strategic planning. Across the galaxy, in the biomechanical nexus of the Syndicate of Merged Consciousness, a different kind of response was brewing. Their vast neural network began to process the implications with cold, calculated precision. Chief Coordinator Mech 7 initiated a complete systemic analysis, routing computational resources from thousands of planetary operations to understand the Hyperion's return. The Luminary Concordance reacted with a more nuanced approach. Their energy-based civilization, composed of pure quantum consciousness, saw the discovery through a lens of historical curiosity. Elder Luminex study archival records, cross-referencing the Hyperion's quantum signature with millennia of accumulated knowledge. On Earth, the response was equally complex. The planet had long since transformed into a decentralized network of orbital habitats and planetary research stations. The Global Coordinated Council convened an emergency session, its holographic representatives materializing from research outposts across the solar system. Ambassador Helena Reyes, representing Earth's interests, stood at the center of the holographic chamber. Her augmented eyes processed multiple data streams simultaneously, analyzing every possible scenario. "We cannot approach this as a potential threat," she argued, her voice resonating through the quantum communication network. "The Hyperion represents our most advanced technological achievement from a critical period of human expansion." The political maneuvering began almost instantaneously. The Galactic Confederation's diplomatic channels became a complex web of encrypted communications, backdoor negotiations, and carefully measured responses. Every major civilization wanted access to the Hyperion, but no one wanted to appear too eager. The Orcs collective was the first to make an official diplomatic approach. Their communication was a masterpiece of quantum-encoded diplomacy, simultaneously a request for information, a potential offer of cooperation, and a subtle threat. Ambassador 09 understood that direct confrontation would be futile. The human vessel had already demonstrated technological capabilities that defied current understanding. Meanwhile, the Syndicate of Merged Consciousness initiated a series of covert operations, specialized infiltration units, biomechanical entities capable of quantum state manipulation, began preparations for potential intelligence gathering. Their goal was simple: understand the technological marvel that had suddenly reappeared in galactic space. The most unexpected response came from the Luminary Concordance. Instead of political maneuvering or technological espionage, they initiated a deep quantum resonance scan. Their energy-based consciousness sought to understand the Hyperion through pure informational interaction, probing its quantum signature with a sophistication that no material-based civilization could comprehend. Back on Nexus Prime, the Galactic Confederation's Emergency Council reached a tentative agreement. The constellation and the newly discovered Hyperion would be placed under strict quarantine. No unauthorized approaches would be permitted. Every major civilization would be granted limited observational access, but direct contact would be strictly controlled. Ambassador Reyes knew the real challenge was just beginning. The Hyperion represented more than a technological marvel. It was a potential reset button for galactic power dynamics. Humanity, long considered a diminished power, could suddenly find itself at the center of galactic attention once more. As communication channels buzzed with speculation and strategic planning, one fact became increasingly clear. The discovery of the Hyperion would change everything. The carefully maintained balance of power that had existed for generations was about to be challenged in ways no one could fully predict. The quantum ghost had become something far more dangerous than a simple lost ship. It was a potential harbinger of a completely new galactic order. The quantum stasis pods hummed with a subtle resonance that defied conventional understanding of energy preservation. Admiral Elena Rodriguez was the first to open her eyes, her neural implants synchronizing with the ship's systems in a cascade of instantaneous connections. Around her, the specialized crew of the Hyperion began to stir. 17 individuals, each selected for extraordinary capabilities that went far beyond traditional military or scientific roles. The stasis pods had been more than simple preservation chambers. They were advanced quantum entanglement systems designed to maintain not just biological integrity, but cognitive and technological continuity. Elena's first breath felt crisp, unnaturally precise. Her augmented vision swept across the hibernation chamber, running simultaneous diagnostics on herself, her crew, and the ship's surrounding systems. The neural link with Araya, the ship's advanced responsive intelligent assistant, began to unfold a complex narrative of their displacement. Dr. Marcus Chen, the ship's primary quantum physicist, was already running preliminary system checks from his pod. His fingers moved with rapid, precise movements across holographic interfaces that materialized around him. Temporal displacement confirmed, he muttered, more to himself than to anyone else. We've been gone for approximately 217 years, 4 months, and 16 days. Commander Kai Okada, the ship's tactical specialist, emerged from his pod with a warrior's instinctive alertness. His cybernetic enhancements, a complex network of quantum-responsive implants, began mapping the ship's current status. Something was different. The ambient quantum signature didn't match their last recorded mission parameters. "Araya," Elena commanded, her voice cutting through the low hum of reactivating systems. "Full systems report. Detailed temporal and spatial analysis." The ship's artificial intelligence responded instantly. A holographic representation materialized, not a humanoid form, but a complex, dynamic neural network that shifted and pulsed with information. "Welcome back, Admiral Rodriguez." Araya's voice carried a subtle undertone of relief. "Extensive quantum anomaly detected. Current location: Sagittarius Arm, Sector 7 Gamma. Temporal drift: 217 standard years from last recorded mission timestamp." Each crew member represented a pinnacle of human potential. Dr. Lucia Ramirez, the ship's xenobiological expert, was already interfacing with advanced research databases. Her neural implants processed centuries of scientific developments in milliseconds. Chief Engineer Dmitry Volkov began running comprehensive diagnostic suites, his quantum adaptive tools probing the ship's systems with microscopic precision. The revelation of their temporal displacement was met not with panic, but with a calculated professional response. This was a crew trained to handle the impossible, selected for their ability to maintain composure in the most extreme circumstances. "Mission parameters," Elena spoke clearly. "What was our last directive?" Araya's holographic representation shifted, displaying fragmented mission data, classified protocols, quantum threat assessments, preservation strategies that pushed the boundaries of known scientific understanding. The Proxima conflict was only the beginning, Araya revealed, projecting historical data that made the crew's collective breath catch. "We were preparing for a threat far beyond the understanding of our contemporaries. A civilization-level extinction event that would require technologies and strategies not yet conceived." Marcus Chen's eyes narrowed. The quantum anomaly wasn't an accident. It was a deliberate displacement. We were preserved. Outside the ship's quantum-shielded hull, the first external scans began to penetrate the Hyperion's defenses. The survey ship Constellation was attempting preliminary communication, its quantum systems barely capable of parsing the complex signatures emanating from the supercarrier. Alina understood immediately. Their return was not a random event. It was a carefully orchestrated intervention. "Prepare for initial external contact," she commanded. "But limit our communications. We need to understand the current galactic landscape before revealing the full extent of our capabilities." The crew of the Hyperion was awake, and the galaxy was about to discover that humanity's most advanced vessel had returned, bringing with it technologies and knowledge that could reshape the entire understanding of space, time, and survival. The first complete systems analysis of the Hyperion took precisely 37 minutes to compile. When the results appeared, they shattered every existing understanding of technological possibility. Dr. Marcus Chen stood transfixed before the holographic display, his augmented eyes processing layers of data that seemed to defy the fundamental laws of physics. The ship's quantum drive was not just an advanced propulsion system. It was a living, adaptive technology that could manipulate space-time at a molecular level. "This is beyond theoretical," he muttered, his fingers dancing across quantum-responsive interfaces. "These are technologies that shouldn't exist for another 3 centuries, minimum." Aria's holographic representation pulsed with complex information streams. "The quantum drive is a self-evolving system," the AI explained. "It doesn't just move through space. It negotiates with space-time itself. Each quantum transition is a complex diplomatic interaction between matter, energy, and dimensional potential." Commander Kai Okada focused on the defensive systems. The ship's nano-adaptive armor was unlike anything in current galactic databases. Microscopic quantum-locked particles could reconfigure themselves instantaneously, responding to threats at speeds that made traditional shielding look primitive. A single microscopic layer could withstand multiple direct hits from current-generation antimatter weapons while simultaneously analyzing and developing counter-strategies. Chief Engineer Dmitry Volkov discovered something even more extraordinary in the propulsion systems. "The energy generation is not just efficient," he reported. "It's symbiotic. The ship doesn't just generate energy, it cultivates it. These quantum reactors are basically alive." Admiral Alina Rodriguez listened carefully, understanding that each revelation was more than just a technological breakthrough. These were pieces of a much larger puzzle, technologies developed in response to a threat so significant it had been deliberately hidden from historical records. The communication systems proved equally mind-bending. Quantum entanglement communication didn't just transmit information, it created temporary quantum bridges that allowed instantaneous communication across impossible distances. More importantly, these bridges could be manipulated, encrypted, and even deliberately missiled in ways that made current encryption look like children's code. "We were preparing for something," Dr. Lucia Ramirez said, her xenobiological expertise finding strange correlations in the ship's biological interface systems. The line between technology and living organism had become impossibly blurred. Aria began to piece together fragmented mission logs. Holographic displays showed glimpses of something massive, a threat that existed beyond traditional dimensional understanding. Planetary-scale defense systems, quantum warfare strategies, technological development paths that suggested humanity had been preparing for a conflict far beyond simple interstellar competition. The most shocking discovery came from the ship's data archives. Buried deep within quantum-encrypted storage were fragments of research that suggested humanity had been developing technologies to interact with, and potentially defend against, extra-dimensional entities. Not just alien civilizations, Marcus Chen realized, his voice barely a whisper. "We were preparing to defend against something that doesn't conform to our understanding of reality itself." The Vorex Collective's initial scans of the Hyperion had already revealed enough to cause panic among their leadership. Their most advanced quantum analysts were struggling to comprehend even the most basic systems of the human supercarrier. Dmitry Volkov discovered a set of adaptive engineering protocols that could potentially revolutionize technological development across multiple civilizations. These weren't just improvements. They were fundamental reimaginings of how technology could interact with physical reality. The ship is more than a weapon, Arayat explained. It's a preservation mechanism, a technological seed designed to restart civilization if the primary threat succeeded. As the crew continued their analysis, one fact became increasingly clear. The Hyperion was not just a lost ship. It was a time capsule of human potential, a technological marvel that represented humanity's most advanced thinking, preserved at the moment of its greatest challenge. The galaxy was about to receive a masterclass in technological innovation, and none of the existing civilizations were prepared for what the Hyperion was about to reveal. The emergency session of the Galactic Confederation descended into chaos within moments of convening. Holographic representatives from 12 major civilizations materialized in the central chamber of Nexus Prime, their quantum-projected forms creating a mosaic of tension and barely contained desperation. Ambassador Helena Reyes stood at the center, a solitary human representative surrounded by a sea of alien diplomats. The Orcs collective's crystalline ambassador vibrated with such intensity that her communication crystals threatened to shatter. The syndicate of merged consciousness projected a neural network of diplomatic tentacles, probing and analyzing every millisecond of the interaction. The Hyperion is a sovereign vessel of human origin, Rice stated firmly, her augmented voice cutting through the cacophony of translated communications. Any attempt at unauthorized access will be considered a direct violation of interstellar diplomatic protocols. The Luminary Concordance's energy-based representative shifted through multiple spectral frequencies, a sign of intense emotional processing. Their quantum consciousness had spent decades believing humanity was a spent technological force. The Hyperion's return challenged every strategic projection they had maintained for generations. Unprecedented, muttered the Jankar representative, a methane-breathing diplomat from a gaseous planetary system. Their translation matrix struggled to capture the nuanced layers of diplomatic tension. Behind the scenes, a complex web of covert operations was already in motion. The Syndicate of Merged Consciousness had dispatched their most advanced infiltration units, biomechanical entities capable of quantum state manipulation. Their goal, to gather even the smallest fragment of information about the Hyperion's technologies. The Orcs collective took a different approach. Their quantum communication networks began a sophisticated series of diplomatic probes, testing the boundaries of human resolve. Each transmission was a masterpiece of multi-layered negotiation, simultaneously a request for information, a potential offer of cooperation, and a subtle threat. Admiral Elena Rodriguez watched the diplomatic maneuvering from the Hyperion's secure communication chamber. Araya, the ship's artificial intelligence, provided real-time analysis of each diplomatic exchange. Diplomatic pressure increasing, Araya reported. The Syndicate is preparing multiple infiltration scenarios. Probability of covert insertion attempt, 87.4%. Rodriguez's lips curved into a slight smile. Let them try. The Hyperion's quantum shielding was more than a defensive system. It was a living, adaptive network that could detect and neutralize threat vectors before they could even fully materialize. The ship had been designed to operate in environments of extreme technological and diplomatic hostility. Ambassador Reyes continued her diplomatic offensive. The Hyperion's technologies are the result of humanity's most advanced research. They are not open for negotiation or external analysis. The chamber erupted in a symphony of translated outrage. The Jankar representative's methane translation matrix produced a sound like crackling electricity. The Luminary Concordance's energy form pulsed with frustrated quantum waves. Commander Kai Okada monitored the external scanning attempts. Multiple civilizations were using increasingly sophisticated methods to probe the Hyperion's defenses. Quantum scanners, dimensional interference patterns, exotic matter resonance techniques. Each attempt was elegantly, effortlessly deflected. They're like children trying to crack a quantum encryption code with stone tools, Okada muttered to Dr. Marcus Chen. Chen nodded, his augmented eyes tracking the complex defensive interactions. They don't understand that the Hyperion isn't just a ship. It's a complete technological ecosystem. The diplomatic session reached a temporary impasse. The Galactic Confederation's Emergency Council could agree on only one thing. The Hyperion would remain under strict quarantine. Limited observational access would be granted, but direct contact was strictly prohibited. As the holographic representatives began to disengage, one fact became crystal clear. The discovery of the Hyperion had irrevocably changed the balance of galactic power. Humanity, long considered a diminished civilization, was about to become the center of everyone's attention. And the Hyperion was just getting started. The classified mission logs began to unfold like a quantum puzzle, each fragment revealing a more terrifying layer of cosmic complexity. Admiral Elena Rodriguez stood in the Hyperion's primary data chamber, holographic displays dancing around her with fragments of humanity's most guarded secrets. Dr. Marcus Chen's hands moved across quantum-responsive interfaces, piecing together a narrative that defied conventional understanding. "It's not an invasion," he muttered, more to himself than to the others. "It's a dimensional incursion." Araya, the ship's artificial intelligence, began to reconstruct the mission parameters. Holographic projections showed fractal representations of something beyond traditional spatial understanding, a threat that existed between the cracks of known dimensional reality. "The membrane breach," Araya announced, its voice carrying a weight of historical significance. "First detected during the deep space quantum surveys of 2146, an extra-dimensional entity capable of consuming entire dimensional planes." Commander Kai Okada studied the fragmented data with a tactical specialist's precision. The threat was unlike anything humanity, or any known galactic civilization, had ever encountered. Not a traditional invasion. Not a war in any conventional sense. This was something far more existential. Dr. Lucia Ramirez's xenobiological analysis revealed the most disturbing details. "It's not a single entity," she explained, her augmented eyes processing multiple data streams simultaneously. "It's more like a dimensional cancer, a consciousness that consumes reality itself, leaving nothing but quantum entropy in its wake." The mission logs painted a desperate picture. Humanity had discovered this threat during routine quantum mapping operations. Initial encounters suggested an entity that could manipulate fundamental physical laws, consuming entire dimensional spaces as a form of computational expansion. "Our primary mission was never conquest," Elena realized, connecting the fragmented mission parameters. "We were a preservation protocol, a technological seed designed to restart civilization if the primary threat succeeded." Araya projected a series of complex dimensional models. The threat, which the logs referred to as the dimensional parasites, operated on principles that made traditional warfare look like a child's game. They didn't invade in a physical sense. They consumed reality itself, breaking down the fundamental quantum structures that maintained dimensional integrity. Chief Engineer Dmitry Volkov discovered the most critical piece of the puzzle. The quantum stasis technology wasn't just a preservation method. It was a deliberate quantum camouflage, a way to hide the Hyperion from dimensional detection. "We weren't lost," Volkov explained, his voice carrying a mixture of awe and terror. "We were hidden, deliberately removed from the dimensional plane to preserve our technological knowledge." The mission logs showed humanity's most brilliant minds working on technologies that pushed the boundaries of dimensional understanding. Quantum warfare strategies, dimensional defense mechanisms, technologies that could potentially create artificial dimensional barriers. "The other galactic civilizations have no idea," Marcus Chen said, his voice a mixture of pride and fear. "They're still thinking in terms of traditional space warfare. We were preparing to defend against something that could erase entire realities." Araya began to compile a comprehensive threat assessment. The dimensional parasites weren't just a theoretical threat. Preliminary encounters suggested they had already consumed multiple dimensional planes in unexplored regions of the universe. Elena Rodriguez understood the true weight of their mission. The Hyperion wasn't just a technological marvel. It was humanity's last hope, a carefully preserved technological seed designed to restart civilization, if the worst happened. "We were the firewall," she muttered, understanding the full scope of their original mission. The last line of defense against a threat that could consume reality itself. The holographic displays showed fractal representations of dimensional breaches, quantum maps that revealed impossible geometries, technologies that could potentially create artificial dimensional barriers. As the crew of the Hyperion continued to piece together their mission, one fact became terrifyingly clear. The threat they had discovered was still out there, and humanity might be the only civilization prepared to face it. The real mission was about to begin. The diplomatic conference chamber on Nexus Prime had never witnessed anything like this. Admiral Elena Rodriguez stood at the center of a holographic array that represented 12 major galactic civilizations, each initially skeptical, now progressively unified by a presentation that challenged everything they understood about cosmic threats. Dr. Marcus Chen manipulated quantum-projected displays, revealing fragments of dimensional mapping that made even the most advanced alien scientists lean forward in collective astonishment. The Vorx Collective's crystalline ambassadors resonated at frequencies that suggested pure scientific excitement. The Syndicate of Merged Consciousness integrated the data through complex neural networks, their biomechanical representatives processing information at speeds that defied organic comprehension. "This is not a conventional threat," Elena explained, her voice carrying the weight of decades of classified research. "The dimensional parasites are not an invasion force. They are a fundamental threat to reality itself." Araya, the Hyperion's artificial intelligence, began projecting complex multidimensional models. Each representation showed how these entities could consume entire dimensional planes, leaving behind nothing but quantum entropy. The visual demonstration was simultaneously beautiful and terrifying, fractals of reality being consumed like delicate mathematical lace. Commander Kai Okada presented the defensive strategies humanity had developed. Quantum barrier technologies that could potentially create dimensional shields, adaptive defense mechanisms that could respond to threats operating outside traditional physical laws. Each technological concept was so advanced that it seemed to blur the line between science and metaphysical speculation. The Luminary Concordance, an energy-based civilization known for their scientific skepticism, was the first to request a deeper analysis. Their quantum consciousness began to interface directly with the Hyperion's data streams, verifying each piece of information with unprecedented thoroughness. Dr. Lucia Ramirez revealed the most critical component of their strategy. "We cannot fight this threat individually," she emphasized. "Our research indicates that only a unified multidimensional defense can potentially resist the dimensional parasites." Chief Engineer Dmitry Volkov demonstrated technologies that could be adapted across different civilizational platforms. Quantum communication interfaces that could bridge seemingly incompatible technological systems. Adaptive defense protocols that could be integrated into various species' existing technological frameworks. The diplomatic session became something more than a mere meeting. It transformed into a collaborative scientific symposium, with representatives from different civilizations actively sharing insights, challenging assumptions, and building a collective understanding. The Jankar delegation, initially the most skeptical, began contributing data from their deep space exploration archives. The Syndicate of Merged Consciousness started developing integrated defense protocols that combined their biomechanical expertise with the Hyperion's quantum technologies. "We are presenting more than a defensive strategy," Elena explained. "We are offering a fundamental reimagining of cosmic survival." Araya began facilitating direct technological exchanges, creating quantum communication bridges that allowed instantaneous sharing of critical research. Firewalls and security protocols were carefully maintained, but the level of collaborative potential was unprecedented in galactic history. The most surprising development came from the Vorx Collective. Their quantum communication specialists began developing integrated defense technologies that could potentially create dimensional barriers on a scale never before conceived. Humanity's disappearance was not a defeat, the Orcs ambassador transmitted. It was a strategic preservation of knowledge. As the conference progressed, a unified strategy began to take shape, not a military alliance in the traditional sense, but a comprehensive scientific and technological collaboration focused on understanding and potentially defending against the dimensional parasites. The final resolution was remarkable in its simplicity and complexity. Each civilization would contribute its unique technological and scientific capabilities. The Hyperion would serve as a central coordination point, its advanced systems allowing for unprecedented levels of interspecies cooperation. When the conference concluded, something fundamental had changed. Civilizations that had been diplomatic rivals for generations were now united by a common purpose. The threat of the dimensional parasites had transformed galactic politics in ways no one could have predicted. The Hyperion had done more than return from temporal displacement. It had rewritten the fundamental rules of galactic survival. The first signs of the dimensional parasites' approach were subtle, quantum fluctuations at the rim of known space that most civilizations would have dismissed as background radiation. But the unified galactic defense, coordinated from the Hyperion, recognized the truth immediately. Dimensional breach initiating, Araya announced, its quantum-adaptive voice cutting through the bridge's tense silence. Probability of full-scale incursion, 97.3%. Admiral Elena Rodriguez stood at the center of a holographic command array that represented the most complex defensive network in galactic history. 12 major civilizations, their technologies integrated through the Hyperion's quantum communication systems, formed a multi-dimensional defensive line. The Orcs Collective's crystalline quantum resonators hummed with energy. The syndicate of merged consciousness deployed biomechanical defensive nodes that could adapt faster than the dimensional parasites could process. Luminary energy constructs created quantum barriers that shimmered with impossible geometries. Incoming dimensional stress, Commander Kai Okada reported. Multiple reality fracture points detected. Dr. Marcus Chen's hands moved across quantum interfaces that looked more like living mathematical equations than traditional technology. They're not just entering our dimensional plane, he explained. They're unraveling it. The first wave of the dimensional parasites defied traditional comprehension. They weren't ships or entities in any conventional sense. They were living mathematical concepts, quantum constructs that consumed dimensional integrity like a virus consumes cellular structure. Quantum barrier at 60% capacity, Araya reported. The ship's defensive systems were pushing the boundaries of known physics, creating dimensional shields that were part technology, part mathematical theorem. Dr. Lucia Ramirez monitored the biological impact. Our unified defense is holding, she confirmed. But they're learning, adapting. The battle was unlike any conflict in galactic history. Traditional weapons were useless. This was a war fought at the fundamental level of reality itself. The Hyperion served as more than a command ship. It was a living defensive algorithm. Its quantum systems creating defensive patterns that could resist the dimensional consumption. Chief Engineer Dmitry Volkov managed the integrated technological systems. Technologies from a dozen different civilizations worked in perfect synchronization, a testament to humanity's original vision of collaborative defense. We're not just fighting, Elena realized, watching the dimensional battle unfold. We're teaching them how to resist. The dimensional parasites probed the defensive line, seeking weaknesses, but each attempt was met with a coordinated response that was more than the sum of its technological parts. The unified galactic defense was a living, adaptive organism, capable of learning and responding faster than the threat could process. Quantum barriers flickered. Reality itself seemed to bend and twist. Entire sections of space became mathematical abstractions, then resolidified through the collective technological will of the defending civilizations. Dimensional integrity at 73%, Araya reported. Defensive algorithms adapting. The battle wasn't just about survival. It was a fundamental test of collective intelligence. Each civilization contributed its unique perspective, its distinct technological approach. The Hyperion coordinated these efforts, its quantum systems creating a unified defensive consciousness. Ours became a blur of quantum interactions. Reality itself seemed to become a negotiation, a complex mathematical dialogue between the defenders and the dimensional threat. And then, slowly, almost imperceptibly, the dimensional parasites began to retreat. "They're withdrawing," Marcus Chen said, his voice a mixture of disbelief and profound relief. "Our unified defense is pushing them back." The final moments of the conflict were not a traditional victory. They were a complex quantum negotiation, a demonstration that collective intelligence could resist even the most fundamental threats to existence. As the dimensional stress began to dissipate, Admiral Rodriguez understood the true significance of their mission. The Hyperion hadn't just been preserved to fight a war. It had been created to teach, to demonstrate that survival was about collaboration, adaptation, and collective resilience. Aroya's final report was simple yet profound. Dimensional incursion neutralized. Galactic defensive network operational. Humanity's lost supercarrier had done more than return. It had transformed the very understanding of survival itself.